Hey guys, it's Kate, and I wanted to do a quick video today on using masking fluid or drawing gum or liquid frisket. You can see it by any of those names. Today I'm going to be using Pabio brand, and this is basically a liquid latex. There are latex-free drawing gums, masking fluids, friskets that you can get if you're allergic to latex. But this is a great way to pre-plan your paintings a little bit if you want to add highlights, or if you want to do a wash and you want to add more colors later that may not glaze well over the color you're using, or if you just want that clear white paper in the background. You can also use it over paint layers that have already dried. And so I'm going to go over a couple of different methods of application today and a couple of things you might want to use. So you'll need your masking fluid or drawing gum, liquid frisket. I am using this brand today and it's blue, which I like because you can see where you've applied it on your page. You also have a couple of different ways to apply it. You can kind of make dots and some small marks using a stylus. You can also use a ruling pen, and it's almost like a dip pen where you can draw it out. And you can use a plain old brush. I would recommend, if you're going to be using masking fluid, to use just a very inexpensive brush or several brushes if you like different shapes and sizes. And what I like to do is mark the end of it with some masking tape. That way I don't use it for paint, because once you start using it with the masking fluid, it will pretty much destroy your brush. And so the cheaper the better, and just make sure you just use it for your masking fluid so you don't ruin any nice brushes. Another thing that's helpful is, while you can take up masking fluid with your fingers once it dries, this is a residue and glue remover. You can also use an eraser, but this works really well, and you can find it in the drawing section and craft section of your local art supply store. You can also find it on Amazon, and I can link to something like this below, along with the different products I'm using here. This I actually got at Dollar Tree, so if you want that and you have a Dollar Tree near you, go pick this up, and it's wonderful. So you can shake this. Some friskets will say do not shake but stir. Sometimes you can get some air bubbles in here, and if you end up getting air bubbles on your paper, it could pop and allow paint through to that surface beneath it anyway. But you can shake it if you want to, if it says, if it doesn't say not to on the bottle. And it is basically very thin and kind of milky. And so I'm picking it out with my brush. You can make small or large marks. You can make stripes. And you can put it on thin or thick. And this is what I mean where I say I really like having the blue color. If you get the white masking fluid, it's hard to tell where you've already applied. And for my brush, I actually like to rinse it on a baby wipe when I'm done. Next up, we can use a stylus. And you can get some little dots that way, that if you need something more uniform than a brush, you can do that. I can also use the skinnier end of my stylus, and you can get some really fine dots. I can also do some scribbly marks, just like that, and call it a day. Now with the ruling pen, this little wheel will widen or narrow the tip of your pen, which will help with flow. I'm going to kind of keep it in the middle, and I'm going to dip it right in my masking fluid, and you can see the fluid kind of held right there in that crack. Let me see if I can get it on camera. So you can see it kind of held in there, and this will essentially feed it onto the page. So you can write with it almost like it was a dip pen. and you can make some very detailed marks, and it will just slowly run out as you use it. Just like this. And I can make lines, and this will last quite a while. So you don't need a lot. It really goes a very long way. And it's finally out. Now to clean this, I'm again going to use the baby wipe and clean out the outside. And then I can actually open this all the way and kind of stick it in here and get that inside cleaned as well. And don't lose your wheel. All right. So the next step would be to let this dry completely before we do any painting. Some people swear by letting it dry overnight. It should be okay after a pretty short amount of time. You will still see a slight sheen from that latex, but you can tell if it's dry to the touch. Now, some of these dots, and I'll get a close-up here, those will take a lot longer to dry. So I'm going to let this dry by putting it aside for quite a while until it definitely is dry to the touch, and then we can paint over this. Now, in the meantime, I've got my watercolor palette over here, and I'm going to also show what it could be like if you are using masking fluid on an existing layer of paint. So let's say I've got some yellow ochre. I'm using my Marie's Masters watercolor palette, and I'm just going to put down a pretty heavy wash of this yellow ochre. And I'm going to let that dry as well. Okay, my paint layer's all dry, so I'm going to come back in with this masking fluid, and I'm going to put in a couple of little shapes right onto my paint. And I'm going to do a little star shape that's simple. And I'm just going to dip frequently, make sure I get a good, decent layer on there. Just like that. And join up my edges. And I'm going to do a solid shape too. So I'm going to do a little heart. And I'm just going to paint this in, spread that masking fluid around onto a even layer. And just make sure I've got my whole shape covered completely. That way I don't have any gaps where paint can come through. And I'll give you a close-up of this. And you can also see how this is starting to dry. You can see that sort of darkening ring around the outside as the moisture leaves. And so this is on its way. So once everything is completely dry, I will be back and we will do another painting and pull this latex up. Okay, I'm back. It's been a couple of hours and my masking fluid is completely dry. So I'm going to give you a quick close-up before I add my second coat, and then you can see how it looks when it pulls off the page, both on a painted background and on a white background. So it has sort of a very slight sheen to it, if you can see that in the camera. So it almost looks like it's wet, but it is dry to the touch, and it feels just like latex or something kind of rubbery on the page. And that's what quality you need to pull it off. It's very stretchy once it dries and you're removing it from the paper. So the next step is to add some paint to this. And I have some Prussian blue out in my palette and also some sap green, and they're just kind of mixed together, and that will do just fine for this demonstration. So I'm just going to give this a good coat, and you can see how the paint is kind of repelled a little bit by this masking fluid. And so you just want to make sure to get it coated nicely, and we'll just pretend that I'm making something very beautiful and artistic here. But you just want to make sure that you get your paint where you want it. You could even do some blending. Let's say I want to add some alizarin crimson in here and make kind of a purple. You can do whatever you want. Paint to your heart's content over this. I'm going to give my brush a quick rinse and grab some more color and add some more to this yellow background. And so I'm just going to give this a quick wash and then put this aside to let it dry again. Okay, I'm back and our watercolor second layer is dry. So I'm going to take my little residue remover and I'm going to start gently rubbing it along that latex. And you can see how easily it comes off this way. Now, once you get an edge of it, you can pull it. It stretches just like a latex glove. You see that? And you can pull it off. Now, if you have any residue that's left behind on your paper, you can use this to get it off, but this just makes the process so much easier than trying to rub it with your finger. And it's going to leave a very clean line where you had it. See how that comes right off? And so I'm just going to try to grab this with my finger and start pulling. Just like that. And it's just this stretchy latex. That's all it is. And it leaves a very clean feeling surface. Same thing with these lines. Now this is where I put the paint right over clean white paper. And this is going to work the best for the thinner marks that you're trying to get off. It just makes such quick work of this masking fluid. And you just go gently and slowly, and it will just pop right off. And you can see that clean white coming through. I'm just going to go through the rest of this pretty quickly. Now I've got that line that I did with the pen, and this just, I mean, my hand is all the way out to here. This stretches. It is very strong, even with a very thin layer, and you can see that just coming right off. Now this little one broke, so I'm just going to pull that up and pull it right off, just like that. These tools are wonderful, and it makes the process very, very easy. Now, even where I had some of these really thin layers, it'll come off here too. And then I've got my dots that I dropped with my stylus. And I'm just going right on through here. And most of this will stick right to your tool. See, right there on the corner. And then you can just periodically kind of pull it off of there. And you can see how fine you can really get with this. All right, we're all done here. Let me give you a close-up. So this is where we had 2 layers. I put blue over yellow, so you've got kind of a green with the yellow shapes. And so you can layer this up with paint. I could put more masking fluid on this and make totally different shapes and then do another layer of paint and pull it off. And then here is where you get that really clean white background. So this is great for those really bright highlights. And let's say I wanted to paint this a different color in the middle of all this galaxy. Well, it's hard to paint around things that you want on your paper. And so let's just say I wanted to come back in and maybe make a yellow shape here. Because obviously, if I tried to paint yellow over all this, it would, 1, turn to a different color, and 2, it'd be, well, very hard to do. But I can come in here and turn this yellow just like this. And so I have a very bright colored shape that is very organic right in the middle of all of this. And it's as easy as that. I could also turn it into a glaze. Let's say I did want to turn this whole thing green. I could do that too. And I'll still have that really nice brightness underneath. So I hope you give masking fluid / drawing gum / Frisket a try. And there's tons of brands out there. There's also latex free. And you can even get it in a pen already if you tend to do finer marks in general. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like this, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep creating.